Deliberation. Shall we talk about this or shall we go through it? John?
Deliberation on the possible use of state donation.
Yeah. Well, that's what it calls on my cheat sheet. Shall we just go on to our regular city council meeting?
Yeah, we're done.
We're done.
We're done.
I am so done. All right. Now, sad note, Bob McEwen died this morning. I just want you to know that we talked about it and we've lowered the flag until Friday because he was a wonderful man and had just a ton of information if you ever sat down and talked to him, which I have on numerous occasions. In fact, we talked about bringing him into the city council sometime this summer. Unfortunately, it's not going to work. But yes, he died this morning in his sleep. I believe it was his sleep.
He's right there over your shoulder. Can I propose just a quick minute, 5 minute for him?
If that's what you like, yes.
It's great. Have a quiet moment, just a minute, silence one.
Thank you very much, everybody, for that show of respect. Is there any declaration of any conflict of interest from the council members?
No.
All right, we're moving on to the approval of the minutes. I would like a motion for the budget meeting for May 13th, 2025.
Move to approve the minutes for the budget committee meeting Tuesday, May 13, 2025.
Second.
Okay, second, is there any discussion, any corrections? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimous. All right, next I'll take a motion for the regular meeting, May 7th, 2025.
Motion to approve with correction of 2 typos. First one is City of Gearhart, not a City of Gearhart, and last one is on page 6, last line, administrator, not administration.
I'll second.
With corrections.
With correction.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, let's move on. I'll take a motion for the work session, May 27th, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the work session of the city council Tuesday, May 27th, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none? All right, great. We planned that really well. Thank you. Planning Commission report, everyone got it in their packet. Does anyone have any questions for Garrett or for Chad? I mean, if Garrett's not there, I don't. Okay. No questions for either one?
I did just note that they were March minutes.
March minutes, and they're always a month behind because of the way that they've started doing things.
They don't provide the minutes until they're approved.
Okay, mayor's report, gosh, it was a busy month. That's all I've got. Well, you just saw what we had to go through as far as minutes. It's just, that's nothing. Sharon, you got anything to report?
I do not.
Paulina?
Briefly, I did attend the Clatsop County Housing Task Force meeting. The county is, and the jurisdictions hopefully are going to try and move forward on a lease to locals program, which takes short-term rentals and invites people who maybe don't have busy short-term rentals to turn them into long-term rentals. We will probably be asked to approve a resolution of support. For Gearhart, this means maybe 1 or 2 of the short-term rentals. The total for the county is projected at 40. And obviously, we do not have like the lion's share of short-term rentals in the county. Probably about the 3rd or 4th in line. That resolution of support is to try and get a grant to cover the incentives for the people that would be doing this. Somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000 a year. And to incentivize people to long-term rent for 9 to 12 months. This is for what's termed middle housing for people who work in the adjacent areas who obviously we know are having difficulty finding housing. The grant funding would be for the first 2 years. Last night I sent an email and quit the county CERT team. I just feel like I'm too old and really wouldn't be that much help. I went on vacation, had a good time doing that. I'm gonna do ribbon cutting for the Trails and Art Association for their little art gallery on Saturday at 3 o'clock. I hope everybody in the audience will attend and all the counselors, except for the mayor who's gonna be gone. And I'm stepping in for him.
Emily,
That's all I have.
thank you very much, Paulina. Dana,
I'm gonna keep mine short because this meeting is so long.
thank you.
Yeah, I went to the Cedar Awards, the Cedar Board meeting where they discussed their budget. Also went to the public safety building meeting. Had a lot of conversations with a lot of citizens over the past month that have led me to conclude that, I would like to work on 2 things going forward. Number 1 is I think we need an ordinance that requires licensing for long-term rentals so that we can track who's renting long-term and know where those rentals are. And whether we assign a fee to cover employee costs and minimal fee or not is, one of the thoughts I'm kicking around. Also, I would like for us to work again on the Sunday prohibition ordinance. And maybe make some reasonable modifications, which would allow contractors who don't make noise with power tools to do some work. I'm thinking of like indoor work or people that are just watering or raking, sweeping, cleaning houses, or doing just simple digging in the dirt to plant gardens. And I'd be interested to, or I'd like to know if anybody else, not right this moment, but if anybody else would be interested in pursuing that also.
Okay, Preston,
Well, I'm with Dana as far as the Sunday work closure. No. I think that it's hurting, particularly at this time of the year, it's really hurting the fellows that do the yard maintenance and stuff like that. They can do an awful lot of things without cranking up a lawn mower or a leaf blower or something like that, so. Anyway, I really think we should revisit that.
well, if it's quiet work, I don't have a problem with it, but with you got a guy turning on a leaf blower at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're gonna see someone coming down the street.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go on. Chief of Police. Chief Gregory, please.
Evening. Stats are done. On time, how about that? Yeah. Good news. We have 148 entries into the log this month, though we're getting busier. Some things of note, we had 62 traffic stops, of which 23 citations were written. We cleared 70 cases this month. We had 2 arrests. Something else that's interesting is we are 65 more case files ahead of this time last year. So we're just ramping up. I expect us to end the year with more than we had in 2024 as well. So we're busy, but we got some good officers working really hard for everyone. So I'll have more about the 4th of July there. Yes, ma'am.
What constitutes a citation versus just a warning of traffic stop?
As you're trying to get my secret. Can't tell you that. No, it's really, it's hard to explain. It's called officer discretion. And it's just decided typically before we even walk up to the car.
So there's no particular X number of miles per hour over the speed limit that,
Each officer is different about what they expect, and a lot of times people are different too. I mean, who we talk with, you know, sometimes it's best to give a warning. Sometimes a warning is suffices. What the education part of it is better than a ticket.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right. Chief, come on.
Thank you, sir. We also got our stats done this last month.
You guys are on a roll.
We're trying, we're really trying.
One in a row.
Right, we did it one time. A couple quick things to point out from last month. We did have 79 calls for total last month, 41 in the city, 25 in the district. And then May of last year had 69 calls, so we had 10 more calls this year than last year for the month of May. But overall, we are 78 calls ahead of last year. The firefighters ball was a very successful event. The best records we have was about 2 or 3 years ago. Our best revenue we got was about 45,000 from that. And we passed that this year and got more than that. So it was a very successful year with the ball and how that went. It was a pretty easy night. Only had issues with one person that we had to deal with, and so it was a well-oiled machine that night for the ball. And then I had a citizen ask me what it takes for our firefighters for certs and stuff, and so that's what that printout you guys have, and I want to go over a couple things on it with you shortly. The list on the left, the pretty detailed list, is a list of certifications our firefighters have here at Gearhart. A few of our firefighters have every single one of those certifications. The next column over is how many hours it takes to get that one certification. I just want to work through the Firefighter 1 certification tonight, and I'll describe it. The Firefighter 1 certification takes 78.5 hours. That's broken up into 21 different topics, ladders, PPE, hydrants, everything from there. And that equals the classroom hours to teach somebody something for fire certification. The next thing you have to do is a practical. Well, now let's go out and put your gear on and grab the tools and go from there. And then they have the task book. They have to have sign off when there's multiple sign offs for each task book, depending on the certification you go to. Then there's a task performance evaluation, which is 4 to 6 things from that task book. They got to do it in front of 3 to 6 officers when they have clipboards sign off. You can and can't do it from there. Then we submit that to the state, and they get NFPA certified in that one certification. So that's just for firefighter 1. Then once they have that, they have yearly hours they have to upkeep that, and that's what's on the second page. That's what's on the third page. And that's why I color coded it yellow, green, and red. If you have a certification in the yellow area, you have to have 60 hours a year to keep that certification. If you have anything in the green area, it's 4 hours a year, anything in the red, it's 12 hours a year. Now, as soon as you have one in each one of those, it's just that amount of time. If you have 2 in the yellow, it doesn't mean it's 120 hours, it's still just a 60 hour. And then OSHA says we have to have 17 required classes every year, so that underneath the OSHA required 17 is all of our firefighters have to have every single one of those classes every year. So I thought I'd kind of try to break that down for you what it takes. Again, the breakdown of the firefighter 1 cert is the only one that's broken down into topics. Our other one down there have multiple topics as well. So unless there's any questions, that have in the monthly report.
Thank you very much, Chief. Any questions from the council?
Just a comment, I went to the firefighters ball and I had a ball. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody for that.
We will. Did a great job.
I did this first, and I didn't stay here.
Oh, really? You didn't even say hello. All right, we're moving on. Master of money.
First, a very big thank you to our budget committee. I really appreciate the questions, the comments, and the professionalism that they gave this year. I'm really thankful that we have some experience, they have a couple of years under their belts, they're taking an active interest, and they're really doing a good job trying to understand a world that they don't live on a daily basis. So I appreciate the commitment. Tonight, the city council will have the opportunity to issue the final adoption of the 25-26 budget resolutions. Gearhart is fortunate to have steady revenue streams. However, they have been increasing, they haven't been growing as much as our expenditures and operating costs. And as I mentioned in the budget message, the city's resource shortfall situation will only get worse if things continue to increase and our revenue just continues to stay at a steady increase. Oregon's property tax restricts the growth of our assessed values, so property tax only grows at a certain amount. There are restrictions that forbid growth on short-term rentals, which is city imposed. There are discrepancies with Gearhart's population estimates. We talked a lot about PSU, and it's definitely having an impact on us. And there are limited amounts of property for development. Those are all of our steady revenue sources. And if we don't have ways to increase those, then they continue to increase, but at a very slow rate. Priorities like contributing to the city's reserve funds, providing adequate staffing levels, and enhancing programs have to be sidelined when we don't have the revenues to cover those expenditures and keep those service levels. The citizens of Gearhart need to remember that they have implemented a specific community philosophy. Gearhart's comp plan references statements like preserve the low density and semi-rural character, ensure development occurs in a manner that is in harmony with the sensitive coastal environment, and conserve, preserve, and protect ocean spaces, scenic areas, historical and natural resources. Other cities around us have sacrificed some of these philosophies by targeting tourism, business development, and large planned housing projects. All of those increase and change the dynamics of their environment. Gearhart's comp plan also says to ensure a stable and healthy economy, which will require citizen staff and city council to start thinking creatively about how to serve the community with limited revenue levels. We had a budget committee member mention that maybe we should start a committee to look at what kind of alternatives do we have for increasing revenue. Not that any of them are necessarily viable options, but just so that we can get some things out on the table for people to talk about and to kind of gauge how people feel about moving forward with those. So Chad and I have talked about what that looks like, and we hope to move forward with doing something with that. More to come on that. In revenues, the city received PRC, which is the potential refund credit that we talked about in the budgeting cycle, distribution payment for the withdrawal of one of 3 of the appeals. It was for the Georgia Pacific, as well as a $35,000 grant for the 2025 wild season staffing grant. So the firefighters have that money again this year, which we did put in the budget so that they have an opportunity to hire some extra staff. Unfortunately, the city received our final fiscal year state revenue sharing apportionment payment, which was significantly less than anticipated. Gearhart's apportionment this quarter was $3,973. And I was thinking conservatively that we would be in the $6,000 range. So it was significantly less, and it is not enough to cover all the grant awards that we awarded. To fulfill our obligation to our local organizations, because I do feel like we have that obligation, we will be paying the difference, which is about $2,600 from the Police Community Care Fund, because that fund is to support community efforts. And so we will pay that amount from our general fund to one of the food bank recipients, the local recipients, to make sure that we meet all of the requirements that we had awarded out. I did reach out to the state regarding the lower payment because I was shocked when it came in, and they were promptly responded within 24 hours, and they just said that the distribution was based on alcohol sales, and that it was simply just that they were down this last quarter, And that was our portion, so it didn't have anything necessarily specifically to do with our population numbers or anything. It just was that the state's revenue didn't come in. It is the lowest payment we've had in 10 years, and we have a higher population than we did 10 years ago. So it is kind of alarming. They also indicated very politely that there is no statute or minimum requirement that they have to distribute out, which we do that, it's based on a formula, and that we won't get any additional revenue payments this fiscal year, which we didn't expect. I also reached out to LOC, and I haven't heard back from them because I'd like to see if anybody else has complained about it. Not that there's anything that can be done, but I am interested to know how this was impacting in other cities, because it really was a shock to me. I am very thankful for the budget committee, because they really took a the responsible approach to distributing out the state revenue shares this year. And so we have made some really good moves in there, even if it continues to be lower as we move into the next fiscal year. I also wanted to comment on the letter from the Oregon Secretary of State Audits Division regarding the city's 2023-24 audit that was in the correspondence. We wanted to put that letter in there for you because it was addressed to you. They are not requesting any corrections, and I have talked to our city auditors about it. They've indicated that neither comment requires really any significant changes to the city's current audit process. They just indicated one of them, there needs to be some additional notes the state would like to see regarding why Gearhart uses the cash basis system, which the auditors support and think it is fine for us to do that. So they're going to add some additional notes, and that the second one was on the the water reserve fund. And that could be as easy as just literally changing the category from enterprise fund on the water reserve to governmental. And it's simply an audit. It's not anything in the way we change the way we do things. It just moves things differently within our audit. So enterprise funds are primarily set up where you have a fee-based user fee that pays for them. So they're like a business, which is our water fund. So people pay, it goes into the water reserve fund, those funds support that fund, and in the end, you have a profit or loss, right? So we had the water reserve fund labeled as an enterprise fund. We have that labeled that way. It's been that way since its inception, which has been many, many, many years, because technically the water operating fund is an enterprise fund, and that is how the money comes to the water reserve fund. But it just sounds like there's some discussion between our auditors and the state's office that they would just like to see it as a government. So it's super easy. It's a technicality. Nothing to worry about, but just know that we are working to resolve that.
Rose by any other name.
That's right. They matter.
Only if you get correct by the thorn. Are you done?
I'm done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna go over to city attorney.
Yeah, we have a few things. We just got all cities in Oregon just got a letter from the OGC regarding food being provided in meetings. The good news is we don't provide food in meetings. If we were to decide we want to, then they've made it clear that we would need to pass an internal criteria for when food is able to be served legally or when it is compensation. So a lot of people are very upset about this, but again, it's not applicable to us because we don't serve meals during meetings. I received a complaint. I think everyone received a complaint this morning alleging that our city manager city administrator violated the law. In my opinion, he did not. And that is a very strong opinion from me because I've spent a lot of time on the statute in question, which is ORS 260.432, is only applicable when a ballot measure is on the ballot or out for signature. So if it is a initiative, which is an idea from voters, as soon as they turn it in to get signatures, but before it is on the ballot, this goes into effect. If it is a referendum, which is when people want to take an ordinance and go out to get signatures on it in order to repeal it, then those rules go into effect at the time that the people go out for signatures. Or a referral, those go into effect when a city council refers an ordinance via resolution to the ballot. And until one of those three things has happened, and in Gearhart, none of those three things have happened, then there is no violation of the statute, and there are no neutrality rules, and there is no limitation on the sort of information that city staff can put out in order to educate the public. And the reason that I am addressing this in the way that I am addressing it tonight is not because of Gearhart, but because a lot of conversations I've had with our insurer CIS, who also represents other jurisdictions, have said that when members of the public or counselors allege violations of the law or impugn the ethics of elected officials, that their advice is that steps be taken to mitigate that. To not mitigate that can create a hostile work environment for our employees. So again, if they reference the Clatsop County Clerk, so I'm going to need to, a conversation that they had with her saying she said they violated the law, so I'm gonna need to contact the Clatsop County Council in order to figure out what's going on there. So I think that this is not just happening in Gearhart. The head of claims for CIS, and again, I had this conversation about another jurisdiction a couple months ago, said that they are receiving a record number of lawsuits due to, yeah, people have free speech rights. They have First Amendment rights under the US and Oregon Constitution. And also there's libel and slander and other lawsuits that can be brought by people. And there's a record number of claims this year in Oregon across all jurisdictions. And I received a tort claim notice for another jurisdiction that I represent a week ago. So it is, a lot of people are saying stuff, and we should mitigate to the extent that we can if the law is clear on it. And if the law isn't clear on it, then I'm going to disclose that too. So so I got a couple of calls from people that believe that I was suggesting that we should erect a gate at the beach in order to keep people off the beach. And sure didn't. I did suggest that we could have some CERT volunteers to make sure that people's vehicles were 4-wheel drive or otherwise had the equipment so that they didn't hit a pedestrian as they were flooring their vehicle to get it into the wet sand, which we had reports of some real near misses. So what I had intended is a kind of public safety related common sense practice for, if you're in your Defender 90, yeah, we're not worried about you, but if you're in your 2-wheel rear wheel drive S-Class, you probably shouldn't be taking it on the beach. But anyway, at no point was there suggestion of a gate. So, but people were pretty worked up about that. So I assured them that I don't believe that's what I said, and it isn't, it turns out. And then there was one other one that I had. So we have a pilot program that Garrett, I think, mentioned, or it was mentioned to turn short-term rentals into long-term rentals, and that is it's not just Gearhart, it's a Clatsop County pilot program. I think there's some other options that probably could be effective, similar to what we did with short-term rentals, which is they would go back onto the rolls at the time of that they sold, could certainly add houses back on, and the other potential option for the county, and again, if this is something that we want to advocate because we're going to be asked to provide letters of support. Another option is a short-term rental is basically a transient lodging property, which is very different than a long-term rental or someone's domicile or second-term home. And in my mind, a change of use that's sufficient, probably could be grounds for a reassessment that would add that assessment to a real market value versus the assessed 3% value. So that is something that would either result in increased property taxes for the jurisdictions that are bearing the burdens and also receiving the benefits of the short-term rental. And that's something that might cause people to decide whether they want to continue doing a short-term rental or whether they want to turn it into a long-term rental. So as we're thinking about ways that we can incentivize what the county is asking us to incentivize, that's something I talked about with Garrett, and then I said that during my attorney report, I would bring it up to you, so that as we decide to craft that kind of what we would support the county doing, that could be certainly options that we would look at as far as how to create more long-term rentals. So that's all I have unless somebody has questions.
Does anyone have questions for Peter at this time?
No, just more of a comment. I called the state also to ask about the ORS, I can't remember the numbers, but what they said was consistent with what you just said. All
right, we'll move on. Chad?
I think I'm gonna keep my report short. You have the information that I provided just as the listing. Does anybody have any questions with that? No? Then I've just got one piece of information here. I was asked, we had an opportunity, ZCS Engineering out of Oregon City contacted the city of Gearhart, asking, knowing that we were going through the public safety building situation, and wanted to provide us with information based on the grants that they have. This is the Seismic Rehabilitation Grant Program. I just received an email from them. It goes on and on. I provided them with our geotech information. They took that back, went through with their engineers and their team. And I'll give you a quote from this one paragraph here. It says, as mentioned previously, the fire station building is a strong candidate for the Seismic Rehabilitation Grant Program. However, the geotechnical improvements required to make a grant-funded retrofit of the existing station unfeasible. Not only to address the liquefaction risks associated with the deep dune sands, but also significant potential for lateral spreading due to the site proximity to the Akasa Creek. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're eligible for that grant because of the amount of money that we would need from them, and then the amount of money for the project versus how much the grant would be for would not cover it or even come close to it. So I don't think it's available to us. I have another question into him that if we ever to come up with a plan C or D and retrofit the current building to use a portion of it, and he didn't think so. So
would you also ask them if they wouldn't be willing to give money or award a grant to a building that would be retrofitted but would still not meet modern standards, or if it has to meet all modern standards?
absolutely.
Because remember, we have the size limitations. Even if we retrofitted, it's still not meeting modern standards.
I'll do that. And other than that, that's all that I have for you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Moving on, visitors, we have none. Public communications.
We do have.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I signed that.
You took it out of the way for me and I immediately left it out of my mind.
And Shannon, you're on that list.
Okay, yes, you are on this list. All right, Todd Miller on Zoom.
Good
Name
evening,
and address, please.
Todd Miller, 762 Second Street in Gearhart. Just want to say good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for your time today. Again, my name is Todd Miller. My wife Paula and I reside at 762 Second Street, Gearhart. We've been homeowners here in Gearhart for the past 3 years, and we live directly across the street from a proposed 2-home development at the end of Second Street on the banks of the Neocoxie River. I also want to say that we're neighbors of Bob McEwen, and his passing today is greatly impactful. He's a great friend. But this development has raised some serious concerns, not only because of its location, but because of what will be lost. The site sits directly within the 100-year floodplain in an area that was never expected to be developed. The soil is predominantly hydric and known to be unstable and prone to subsidence, particularly in seismic events. The project proposes 31 mature trees. I want to say that again, 31 mature trees, many of them over 150 feet tall and more than a century old, from a lot just under an acre in size. These trees are not just part of the landscape, they're part of the environmental infrastructure. They stabilize the soil, support the water table, absorb flood waters, and protect neighboring homes, including mine, from the effects of heavy storms. They also anchor a delicate ecological corridor connected to the broader Nicanicum estuary, supporting riparian and wetland habitat, as well as coho spawning environments that make this place unique and ecologically significant. If this development is to proceed, and quite honestly, I recognize that it may, I respectfully ask the council to take 3 steps to help protect the community and ensure this never happens again. First, before any grading or excavation begins, I ask the council to ensure that the removal of these 31 mature trees and their extensive root systems is carefully reviewed for its potential impact on the surrounding water table, flood surge behavior, and stormwater drainage, especially for neighborhood homes like mine. These trees have long played a stabilizing role in this area. If the project moves forward, I'm asking for the city's commitment to ensure that this work is done responsibly, with clear steps to protect existing properties from unintended consequences. Second, I urge you to adopt option B, including the East of Pickham items that we talked about earlier within the public hearings of the proposed zoning changes to the flood hazard overlay zone. These changes are vital. They will improve transparency around future floodplain development, reduce liability for the city, and help ensure the residents' access to FEMA flood insurance, ensure that it is not jeopardized by piecemeal or inconsistent zoning policy. And third, I ask that the city re-engage with the kind of forward-thinking environmental stewardship exemplified by the Neocoxie Watershed Commission. Let's prioritize science-based planning, long-term protection of our natural resources, and not just for today, but for the next generation of Gearhart residents. This isn't just about one development. It's about setting a standard. Gearhart is special because we've historically chosen to protect what makes this place beautiful and resilient. That must remain our guiding principle. Because once we lose places like this, like a small ancient forest, once the trees are gone, the floodplain filled, the habitat compromised, there's no getting it back. This is a piece of what makes Gearhart, Gearhart, and once we lose it, it will be lost forever. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Todd. Okay. Before I go on, everyone remember when you're making your public comment, it's about anything that is not on our agenda. Okay? So Shannon Smith, name and address, please.
Well, I'm gonna hand out some things first. You don't mind my time? Just for the council,
Name and address, please.
Shannon Smith, 774 Pacific Way, Gearhart, Oregon, 9713. Here's for the folks in the audience. Hold on. There should be 3 pages for each person. One. Okay, here. I'd like to say
1 minute before I begin my 5 and say something about Bob. He's my friend of 25 years. So terrible way in the sense of boozing. But I want to say anybody here who says anything about being old, this is a great thing to take from Bob. All the years I've known him, if he ever had some affliction, he'd say, I have no idea why I'm tired. And he'd look at you like, age never occurred to him to be something that was a problem. So cold, pneumonia, anything was like, I don't know what's going on. So just take that as something that's a positive to keep yourself going if you think something's wrong. So, okay, I'll begin. Oh, sorry. There's a handout going around that you'll see. It's for free, especially second and first year with this development. It is not your usual development. What I like to say about it is that, as Todd was saying, Gearhart is a special place. I'd like to take us back to think what was happening 40 years ago in Gearhart. The estuary plan and all the work that Hilmaine did was happening. To inventory what was in the estuary, to measure it, to look at how many endangered coho were in the tributaries. He worked his butt off for years to catalog that, and it was honored by our comprehensive plan. And he put his life work into that. And then the North Coast Land Conservancy also came out of that. Then now, 20 years ago, what occurred is what they described as the Neocoxy watershed stewardship proposal. And in this, for example, it was also adopted in 2004 by the city.
2002.
2002, thank you very much. Says according to comprehensive land use plan acknowledged by State of Oregon, City of Gearhart has undertaken legal responsibility for conservation of natural resources within its city limits and urban growth boundary. Goal 5, 6, 7, 8, 16, 17, 18 of the Gearhart Comprehensive Plan pledged the city to conserve the Neocoxy watershed and to cooperate with adjacent jurisdictions, Seaside and Clatsop County, in a management program that includes entire Mechanicum estuary. That's in our plan. Where is it? We'd like to see it in the documentation. From there, though, 20 years, 40 years of people invested in this particular special part of our landscape. People talk about the dunes and the beachfront. Interestingly enough, in our natural resources inventory, the golf course is mentioned, but not Neocoxy. So what I want to talk about too is that this is the special landscape over there. If the folks in the audience have these maps, I'll grab them. This is the property 100 years ago, 1930, 35. And then this is the landscape right now. So imagine that whole stand of trees and they're gone. 31 out of, we've counted in there probably 39, 30, 40. The 31 being gone will actually, the root system will then end up with the others dying. And the disturbance, plus fish, etc. on the river. So it's imperative that this be considered not just something that's just any old building site. The other issue with it is there's no appeal, no commentary, no hearing. This is going to impact Gearhart, everyone here who's ever looked north on a Neocoxy or appreciated the southern views from any of the spots along the way. It is not the kind of thing that should go along without people documenting and talking about why it's important to preserve it instead of, even if there's a homeowner that bought it years ago, until what, the 2000 and something, all that land there when I bought my property said unbuildable.
1 minute.
What happened in the last few years that changed to undeveloped? And by the way, this isn't just someone who loved the forest and wanted their home site there. It's a developer who basically bought it from one of our very good Gearhart citizens and then said, oh, I think I'll do two track homes there. So they're doing it for their own speculation. So it's not even for someone who thinks it's a great place to live. So it's got, and approval process they went through had so many different issues. You'll read on the document about different septic levels, all sorts of considerations that most developer or homeowner would never have gotten past. So we have grave concern about it. We believe much of the creek is in parks, the aquatic resources special concern. And we've talked with state lands about making sure that is an overlay that they take into account. So please take another look at this, allow public to comment about it, because it's really super important. We're gonna let the whole city know, and it's gonna be like the elk before they got killed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Shannon. All right. Deanna, name and address.
Okay.
please.
Deanna Mansell, 2945 Highway 101 North. I'm gonna start off with talking about doing a text amendment on the tree ordinance. Earlier testimony, I had suggested using the invasive plant atlas of the United States, a guide that was developed by the University of Georgia, U.S. Forest Service, and all the Oregon watershed councils use invasive species list for a reference point. A noxious species list, which is on the tree ordinance, was from a 1994 zoning ordinance, does not reflect the new invasive species guidelines that watershed councils use. We need to use updated materials on any city ordinance, especially when it concerns stewardship and protection of native vegetation within the city. And then I'm going to go into the issue about the Neocoxie Watershed Stewardship Mission Statement, which I co-authored with Bill Burr and Sarah Neberker and Neil May. In the fall of 2002, the Gearhart City Council adopted an ordinance called the Neocoxie Watershed Stewardship Mission Statement. It was based on the Niantic Estuary Inventory Plans Committee's recommendations from 1979. The mission statement uses the Gearhart Comprehensive Plan, and we pledge the city to conserve the Neocoxie watershed and to cooperate with Seaside and Clatsop County in a management program that includes the entire Niantic Estuary. And Bill Berg was on the committee in 1979, and Neil Main was the consultant, and he developed the Niantic Estuary Inventory Plan, which was used as the basis for the Board of County Commissioners to adopt an ordinance in 1984 with language that is incorporated in the Clatsop County, the Seaside, and Gearhart Comprehensive Plan. It's listed under Goals 16 and 17, Niantic Estuary. And one of the things about the Niantic Estuary is the estuary starts, well, it ends at Pacific Way. And the committee determined that north of Pacific Way, 1,000 feet north, was the crucial wetland system. It's the aquatic conservation zone. All that area was crucial to the health of the estuary. And so the committee drew an estuary shorelands boundary that incorporated the 100-year floodplain. And so, okay, so their intention at the time was not to allow development within that area. And now with the administration, with pro-development, that area is under threat. I have a map that I found at the courthouse in a file cabinet, and it's actually a map of the Nicanacan estuary and the shoreland boundaries. And it very clearly delineates where that boundary is. And there should be no confusion about protecting this whole Neocoxie watershed corridor.
10 seconds.
So thank you for your time. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Okay. Now I'm going to, there are no other people that want to speak that didn't sign up. Are there anyone on Zoom? I see no hands. All right, we had a letter from Stuart Schultz. Dana, we have your letter in here, our packet. Sharon, we got your notes on trees. And there's one other. And then there's the late correspondence. Oh, that's from the auditor. That looks like it as far as correspondence and late correspondence. Is that correct?
I think so.
Thank you. Someone. All right. So we're off of that, we're off that, we're off that. We're moving over to there's no we're just going to ordinances and yeah. Okay, there we are. So we're going to ordinances and resolutions, for gosh sakes. Chad, will you read ordinance number 946 for me, please?
Sure, get there real quick. Thank you. Council, ordinance 946, an ordinance fixing the time of regular council meeting, repealing ordinance 697 and amending section 1 of ordinance 653. Ordains as follows. Ordinance 697 is repealed in its entirety. Section 1 of ordinance 653 shall be amended to read as follows. Section 1, regular meeting. Regular meetings of the Gearhart City Council shall be held on the first Wednesday of each month and shall convene at the hour of 6 p.m. on said day. If the first Wednesday of any month shall fall on a legal holiday, the regular meeting of the council shall be held on the next succeeding Wednesday. It's ordinance 946.
Thank you. So. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve
Okay,
ordinance 946.
is there a second?
Second,
Is there a discussion?
yeah, I just have a concern that when it's under legal analysis. No, I guess this was for staff and how this is gonna work for staff, if we have to have a 5 o'clock start time for pre-city council meeting stuff.
Or we could make that 5:30, that way they have half an hour, would that be? Doesn't make a difference to you?
It's a difference, it's the same amount of time for us. Whether you do it back to back or whether you put a gap in it, still ties up the time.
So you don't need like a break between finishing your work, okay,
And we usually stay here and prepare for the meetings.
right, but you got downtime.
Yeah. We may have to create a little of that.
Okay. Is there any other discussion?
You're the guy who's still working, how would that, I mean, I don't wanna limit us to where we can't have folks that are working on the council in the future, I don't wanna cut off an opportunity for,
You guys are, it's 7 o'clock, but then you got time to go home and have your dinner, and, you know, at 6 o'clock, you got no time at all.
answer you could according to Peter.
If we had a mandatory work session that was over dinner hours, then we could serve food. If we adopted a policy that said that,
You could
That
bring
could not be a-
sandwich.
that would be following University of Oregon's policy. Go Ducks.
University of Oregon.
Oregon State has the same policy.
I would just, based on the legal analysis piece of this, perhaps the ordinance could read, we'll just start whatever meeting we've got at 6. So, I don't know, that might be challenging for noticing, but in other words, we have a public hearing that started at 6 with council session to follow. And if we don't, then we'll start a council meeting at 6. Sorry,
So take out regular meetings and just say meetings.
I can't listen at the moment.
Yes,
Well, it would need to be massaged a little bit more than that. Meetings of the Gearhart City Council shall be held, shall convene at the hour of 6 P M. And then regular meetings of the city council shall be held on the first Wednesday, blah, blah, blah.
right, it's just,
Right, so first sentence would be, meetings shall convene at the hour of 6 P M. On said day, or at 6 P M on said day. And then regular meetings of the Gearhart City Council shall be held on the first Wednesday of each month. If first Wednesday of any month shall fall upon a legal holiday, the regular meeting of the council shall be held on the next succeeding Wednesday.
Does that impact work sessions?
So if it was a work session, it would start at 6 P M.
But what if the work session wasn't on this day? Would it still be a 6 p.m.?
Right, since the first sentence
Always
doesn't,
say
is just meetings. Meetings shall start at 6 P M.
Regardless of what day?
Right, and then the second one is and then the second sentence goes into the regular meetings being scheduled on the first Wednesday of the month. Or on the next Wednesday if necessary.
Can I ask Peter a question, please? Would we need to pull the ordinance first, though, before amending that paragraph? Because it could have other paragraphs that refer to executive sessions, work sessions, special council meetings. I'm not sure what the rest of it said.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to verify that. I mean, this was written with the, this was written to move the meetings from 7 to 6. I think my recommendation is if there's a work session that's before the meeting, whether that's at 5 or 5:30, then we add the language that say the city council meeting immediately follows. So that in the event that we have a work session that begins at 5, if that were to be done by 5:10, we would be able to move into the regularly scheduled meeting versus 6 o'clock. And I vetted that with the state in the past in other jurisdictions, and they've allowed that language of the city council meetings to immediately follow. So as long as we're giving people notice that the overall package begins at 5 or 6, that, that's sufficient as far as I'm concerned. If we want to change it, so all meetings start at 6, then, I'd want to make sure that that's consistent with the other sections of this. So I don't have it in front of me right now.
Those are a lot of changes.
all right, so let's move this into a holding pattern until Peter gets to look it over.
Let's table it.
Table it,
Do we have to withdraw the motion?
we can withdraw the motion.
Move to withdraw the motion.
Can I get a table motion? table this until Peter gets a
Yeah,
chance.
table it until next month.
I'll give you a motion to table this until Peter can get back to us.
Ordinance 946.
Ordinance 946.
I second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, held over. All right, now we go to a resolution granting budget appropriation transfers for the road district. Resolution 1007.
So I have put in, and I also put it online for people who want to access it. I put information in there since we didn't do staff reports on these, just so you can follow along. That might be easier. Next year I can include it, or I can do a staff report if that's easier. Do you want me to go through them, Carrie? I mean, I want to go through them if that's okay.
Dave, say that again?
I'm prepared to start if you were.
Okay.
Okay, so each fiscal year, there are standard regulatory procedures that we have to follow. They're pretty mandated with a lot of ORSs and other things. So you've seen these every year, the numbers change, we go through the same processes. But I want to go through each one so we can talk about them and approve them on an individual basis. Resolution 1007, a resolution granting budget appropriation transfers for the road district. This resolution adjusts appropriations in the current year, so it's on the budget that we're working on now. It doesn't impact the overall total numbers of the budget. It's simply moving appropriations around because we can do that, because when you budget, you don't always know the exact amount. I will read the resolution for you. A resolution granting budget appropriation transfers. Whereas the city of Gearhart adopts resolution number 999, adopting and making appropriations for the 2024-25 Gearhart Road District budget on June 5th, 2024. And whereas the city of Gearhart's actual expenditures have varied from the budgeted anticipated expenditures, which requires an appropriation transfer between existing categories. And whereas Oregon Budget Law, ORS 294-4631, allows the city to move appropriations between existing categories within a fund. And whereas explanation for the needed transfers within the city of Gearhart's budget appropriations for 2024-25 is due to an increase in legal notice publishing costs. Now therefore be it resolved by the city council of the city of Gearhart that budgeted monies within the Gearhart Road District be appropriated for the adjusted column in the chart below. We're not changing the existing amounts. We're simply adjusting, well, we're changing it, but we're just moving the categories. That's all we're doing. And we're doing that because we have a legal notice that we have to publish that was more money than we had in materials and categories. So that just allows us to take it from capital outlay and put it in materials and services. The council action options: approve the appropriation transfers, make changes to the motion to approve an amendment, or take other action desired by you.
I'll take a motion.
Move to approve resolution 1007.
Second.
Okay, it's second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, moving on to the next resolution.
Resolution 1002, a resolution granting budget appropriation transfers. This is for our actual city budget. Again, this resolution adjusts the appropriations just like we talked about. The two funds that need adjustment are the general fund and the building reserve fund. Within the general fund, the departments impacted are non-departmental, port, planning, and parks. And again, I will read the resolution. A resolution granting budget appropriation transfers, whereas the city of Gearhart adopted resolution 998, adopting and making appropriation for the 2024-25 budget on June 5th, 2024. And whereas the city of Gearhart's actual expenditures have varied from the budgeted anticipated expenditures, which requires an appropriation transfer between existing categories. And whereas Oregon Budget Law, ORS 294-4631, allows the city to move appropriations between existing categories within a fund. And whereas explanation for the needed transfers within the city of Gearhart's budget appropriations for the 2024-25 are due to increased purchase services costs necessary to support the city's third-party planner, increased need for purchase service costs associated with additionally scheduled municipal court dates, costs associated with the recreational court resurfacing grant project, and for necessary costs associated with the public safety building project. Now therefore be it resolved by the city council of the council of the city of Gearhart that budgeted monies within the general fund and the building reserve fund be appropriated per adjusted column chart below.
I make a motion that we pass resolution 1002, a resolution granting budget appropriation transfers.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the resolution before we go to 103, does anyone need a 5-minute bio break? Okay, let's keep going.
Resolution 1003, a resolution declaring the city's election to receive state revenues for fiscal year 2025-26. The Department of Administrative Services requires all cities to annually certify eligibility in order to receive state revenues, which are the cigarette, liquor, and the state highway taxes. In order to qualify to receive the funds, cities are required to approve and submit a resolution. Would you like me to read the resolution? The resolution simply is a standard procedure requirement based on the ORSs and the meetings that we have that we would like to receive state revenue shares.
I don't think it's necessary. Does anyone want read?
I make a motion that we approve resolution 1003, a resolution declaring the city's election to receive state revenues for fiscal year 2025-2026.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving.
Resolution 1004, a resolution adopting the budget for the 2025-26, imposing tax, categorizing taxes, and making appropriations for the city of Gearhart. This is the final step for the completion of the 2025-26 budget document. There's been 2 changes that can be made before the budget adoption. These 2 changes are de minimis in terms of the overall budget. However, amending them does provide accurate projection figures that we know as up to date. The budget officer is recommending that general fund, and I put on the back of this so you can see what it looks like. I put a draft of the 2 impacted accounts. We would, the budget officer is recommending that the general fund property tax current line 2 be increased by $18,498, and the general fund other Gearhart Fire Protection District line 21 be decreased by $18,498. The city has been notified that one of the 3 PRC projected to be withheld next year has been signed by a judge and is now being withdrawn. So we anticipate getting about $18,498 in property tax revenue. And then the city has a tentative contract agreement, which you will see in a couple of motion items with the Gearhart Fire Protection District. And the negotiated amount was less than approved by the budget committee. So we would decrease that amount. This is not a significant change, but it does help later on in life when we're looking just to see that that's actually what we budgeted. It wouldn't have to be amended because it is such a small de minimis amount in the overall that we could just have one under and one over, but it is best practices to change it. So my recommendation would be to make a change with the amended.
I
I make a motion that we adopt resolution, that we approve resolution 1004, adopting the budget for 2025 to 2026, opposing taxes, categorizing taxes, and making appropriations for the city of Gearhart. Correct?
Yes, this number 2, page 2, it's number 2.
I mean, there we go, okay. So number 2?
Yep.
So, I make a motion that we make changes and motion to adopt the amended 2025-2026 budget, staff recommended. Is that what you think? A proposed motion that the Gearhart City Council adopt the amended 2025-2026 budget in the amount of $7,948,836, which includes a permanent tax rate limit levy of 1.0053 per thousand of assessed value and general obligation debt service.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on.
Resolution 1005, a resolution adopting the budget for the 2025-26, imposing tax, categorizing tax and making appropriations for the city of Gearhart Road District. Again, this is the final step. I am, no changes to this. I am just recommending that the council adopt the budget as presented, the resolution as presented.
Motion to approve, the Gearhart City Council adopt the Gearhart Road District proposed 2025-2026 budget in the amount of $355,040 with a permanent tax rate levy of 0.0602 per thousand of assessed value. That's resolution 1005.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on.
Resolution 1006, a resolution fixing the compensation of the following officers of the city of Gearhart, city attorney, police chief, fire chief, city administrator, treasurer, and judge, and repealing all prior ordinances and or resolutions of fixing the compensation of these officers of the city of Gearhart. This resolution has been traditionally approved by city council. It satisfies the requirement in section 12 salaries in the Gearhart charter that states that the compensation for the services of each non-elected officer and employee will be the amount fixed by the council. All staff salaries are provided in the budget document, which goes through a process of approval by the budget committee and the city council, and people were allowed several opportunities for public comment. Would anybody like me to read this?
Just the title.
Sure. A resolution affixing the compensation of the following officers of the city of Gearhart: city attorney, police chief, fire chief, city administrator, treasurer, and judge, and repealing all prior ordinances and or resolutions affixing the compensation of these officers of the city of Gearhart.
I make a motion to approve resolution number 1006.
Second, please.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on, we're into old business. There's a 3-minute comment for people that want to discuss the 4th of July discussion follow-up, but then before we do that, we have a scribes error. And I think I can bring that up under old business.
Yeah.
And that's where we need something in the tree ordinance where it says solar, it should be solar panels. I believe that was mistakenly left off because it was talked about 2 years ago when we talked about solar, it was solar panels we talked about. So I'd like to have that added into the tree ordinance along with solar.
Probably, I thought the Scrivener's error was related to the 4th of July conversation, so we should probably bring that as an agenda item
Okay,
for next month.
all right, then that's what we'll do. Thank you. All right, so 4th of July discussion follow-up. And Chad, were you gonna leave that?
No, actually, we had, well, yes, I'll get it started. So we've had many conversations as city staff. We've spent time down on 10th Street Beach Approach. We've also talked about the numerous other little items with the 4th of July to make sure that the city is prepared for. And we met down on 10th Street with Mark McFadden, Chief Como, Chief Gregory, myself, and discussed some issues. And Chief Gregory has worked on a little report that he's going to do and discuss some of the items that we're going to work on for this 4th of July.
Okay.
Carrie, you
Well-
asked for a 3-minute.
Oh.
Yep, 3-minute comment. I did ask,
Okay.
and I didn't receive a hands up or a hands in the audience. So I'll ask again at the end of the chief's report because it's going to be very informative.
Oh, yeah. Super informative. I got you a little handout here. I'll just give this now. Thank you. It's 2 pages. I'll go quickly through it. All right, sir. You. Okay, so just moving on to 10th Street access. We decided to keep that remaining open this year. We're gonna work through the other issues. So what we're considering a pedestrian safety corridor. The problem with the corridor, and think of a fenced off area where individuals can walk east to west along 10th. The problem is it's very skinny. And if you're gonna keep 2 lanes of travel there, we looked at it and deemed it's just, there's just not really a safe way to do that unless we wanna have cars running into each other. So that's probably not gonna work. We are gonna look at signage though. So we'll be placing numerous signs along the shoulder of 10th. The signs will consist of no parking along shoulder, which tends to be an issue, especially the closer to the beach that you get, where people start to huddle along that left side or that south side of the roadway. 4-wheel drive vehicles only. Again, like Peter was talking about, the rear-wheel drive S-Class is not smart to take down there. Warning, soft sand, tow zone, which we will be trying to enforce as we can. And caution pedestrians, just alerting people that are driving that there are pedestrians walking. And officers will attempt to monitor access. It will get busy, so we're gonna try to keep an officer there as much as possible. Some officer directives, so emphasis will be put on posting an officer at the shore off of 10th. My first year here in 2023, second day on the job here, we had the 4th of July, which was a lot of fun, right? And so I kind of worked through that and looked at some of the issues we had and what could we have done better? And one of them we implemented last year was at about 3 o'clock, I posted an officer for an hour detail, basically at the shoreline facing the 10th Street access. And anytime any group of, let's face it, minors began to build up, we would immediately come in, walk up, deal with it. They would take off running. We would, grab the ones we could, and then that became an hourly bid because they don't get the message the first time, they come right back in about an hour. So we're gonna continue to do that. We do have 3 officers, so we'll do what we can. Officers will monitor activity, so large crowds of disorderly conduct, minor possession of alcohol, controlled substances, dangerous illegal firework activity, fighting and or lewd conduct. Mandatory parental contact for MIP under 18 years of age. So we have to, once we take someone for MIP, we have to contact their parents. That can be cost, that can be time consuming, especially while these kids are from the metro area. Some of their parents don't even know they're here So, I mean, this is how this works. So it can be a 3 or 4 hour process to hold on to a juvenile before we can get them to their parent. A lot of times parents will say, okay, they're with who's their friend? We'll tell them, they'll say, okay, this is their parent, we'll get them to their parent, and they'll get permission to go to that adult. That's best case scenario. Those cases will be forwarded to the juvenile department. Citations for all violations and arrest when applicable. On Marion, during the day and into the evening and early morning hours, we're gonna monitor parking along Marion. Field interview occupants of vehicles into the morning. So there's a lot of MIP contact. We noticed last year, there's a ton of vehicles parked up Marion through the night. And when you drive by, you see the eyeballs pop up and they'll see you and take off running. So they're sleeping in their cars at night or they're drinking there. So we're gonna try to curb that a little bit as well. Provide a safe space between intersections. This is specifically, well, some of the roads, 10th is the big one. There needs to be a corridor there off of 10th where vehicles aren't parking right up to the curb. Because when you're pulling out of 10th facing east, making a turn there, if there's vehicles blocking, you can't see. So you're really just rolling the dice and hoping no one's coming. So we're gonna put up a barrier there of some sort. Fireworks, dangerous activity on the beach will be investigated. So if it's major, we're there, we see it, we will work with it. Our primary focus will be on the surface streets within city limits. We will be out driving around when we can, and if we see the fireworks, we'll act on it. The problem is we'll get some calls for firework complaints. We go to it, it's a house full of 20 people. If they don't want to answer the door, someone does. They say, we don't know what you're talking about. And that's where we end up with it, right? Unless we get someone saying, yeah, I shot the fireworks, here they are. I'll give you the rest of mine right now. We're kind of at a crossroad there, so we don't really get a lot off of that. Outside agency collaboration. I've met and will meet again with other law enforcement executives in the county, especially specifically South County, to discuss their tactical plans. Right here, we have ours. We will provide council with a copy if y'all would like it. This is the police and fire department's TAC plan. Just states everything we want to do. Each officer and fire officer will have that TAC plan when they start the day. If there's any questions, they know to look at it and see what's going on. It provides numbers, ORSs for easy citation purposes, things like that. And other agencies will share those with us as well. SPD will have, what I hear, they're gonna have 16 OSP MRT, which is their bicycle team, in town in Seaside. Push come to shove, if something crazy popped off here, I'm sure that they would allow some of them to come this way if it wasn't needed there, but I can't guarantee that. I wouldn't want to hang my hat on it, so, but they are there. Warrenton and they're pretty quick on those bikes. Warrenton and AP, and imagine the roads are congested, so you're getting faster on the bicycle than you are in the car, for sure.
2 minutes when you're fighting is an awfully long time.
It's a long time, it's a very long time. Warrenton and APD, we focus on North County. CCSO should have a deputy assigned to the coastline, they typically do. They're always willing to bring up a deputy to help us out if we need it. But as you imagine, that deputy will be busy. OSP will be staffed, however, primary focus will be the highways and mass influx of people in our area. The 100,000 people who decide to come to Placer County for 4th of July. So there's gonna be a lot of crashes and road rage incidents they'll be needing to deal with. My expectations are officers will work in traffic enforcement, including crashes, call response, parking violations, illegal fireworks, disorderly conduct, noise complaints, and DUIs. We expect a very long weekend, being that this starts on Friday, the 4th of July. They're coming on Thursday. And you can bet your bottom dollar on Sunday evening at about 6 o'clock, that highway will be gridlocked because everyone's going to want to leave in the lap. Yeah, that's what I have.
One more thing.
Yes.
You're gonna have high tide at like 8 something on July 4th, which means they're gonna either come really early and leave, or they're gonna come later and be out all night long. And then high tide is like 10 something. the next
That's
morning.
assuming people pay attention to it.
8:33.
A lot of people will not pay attention to it. Yeah, and it's in the TAC plan.
And do you have a school bus or something like that for holding the MIPs?
Wish I did. Wish I did, and we still need the officer to stay with that person, basically babysit that individual. So it gets consuming, it's time consuming.
So basically, if you have 3 MIPs and you have to call the parents and everything like that, you guys are shut down.
Well, we'll get creative. We get creative. One of us will watch 3 and the others will deal with the calls we get. It would be nice to have more officers. I mean, if that's the route that would fix that, but it's the case in Seaside. It's the same thing. Seaside has the luxury of having a place where they can put them into a room, an area, they're monitored by a camera. They've got people working in the dispatch center to make sure that person, those kids are breathing, they're alive, they're fine. If they have to go to the restroom, they can go to the restroom. So we don't really have that luxury.
Could we do an IGA with Seaside that would allow us to just transport them to that facility?
I mean, I would have to talk to Chief Ham about that, but I don't know what.
I don't think you're gonna be able to get from here to Seaside on this highway.
It's packed up. I don't think, it does take a long time to get into town. My officers know we are more than willing to help. If there's something going crazy in Seaside and they need police response and no one's able to get there, we will help them. But running code there with lights and sirens is easy because cars move out of the way. When we leave, we don't run code because there's no emergency. So we're stuck in gridlock in Seaside, moving with the pace of the snail.
We don't want you to look at.
Yeah, we're, and our primary objective is city of Gearhart.
So the parks aren't committing to having even one person on?
They usually bring one person, that person leaves before the sun goes down, and that they have no enforcement anyway. They're really, they can arrest, they don't have enforcement powers.
Could they make the calls for you or help in some other way or do traffic control or?
And they've never offered, I've never asked state parks that, so I apologize for not knowing that.
They told us the last time we talked to them, they told us that all of their resources are tied up, that they don't get any additional help up there at the Department of Airport scene, so they're.
If you ask for additional help outside of Clatsop County, the typical response will be, well, it's the 4th of July, we're busy too.
Yeah.
We need our people as well.
I sure hope none of the teenagers are listening to this summation on the Zoom.
You didn't say where there was gonna be, where they were gonna be.
Well, no, I'm just, these guys are pretty creative.
Like that's what they want to spend their time doing.
The only other issue that we also need to talk about is with the garbage can that we did last year. That is a concern of ours. As we went down there and where that garbage can was placed, it really added to the pinch point factor of creating the traffic jam that we received, some of the danger. So we talked about it today, but we need to get back down and look for an alternative site for that can. That would be close enough to the beach so people will use it, but then not be in the way of all of the pedestrians and traffic. So we'll report back to you on that because I know you're working with the garbage side of things. And we'll spend some time over the next few days trying to figure that out.
Right, yeah.
Does the garbage get put on the 4th or on the 5th or both?
It gets there, I think, on the 3rd, and then it's there for the 3rd, the 4th, 5th, then it's picked up the 6th.
That's the state providing it, so. We put out our extra garbage cans throughout the community.
We have those ordered.
Yeah.
I think 15 or 14 extras.
We're gonna put out the usual signs, have a safe, clean, pack it in, pack it out.
We're gonna be doing the usual signs, we're gonna order to reinforce those signs, it's something that lost over the last couple of years. And then we're also going to be ordering the signs that we're gonna put along 10th Street that say no parking, and all the other no's.
We could get bags from the Mechanical Watershed Council if we want to do any separation of bogs and cans.
We would ask that if we could get volunteers for that, I don't know that we have staff to, we can help. And if we get some volunteers to assist with that, that'd be great.
Do we have tow companies on call?
That was one of the things we had talked about is contacting Seaside Towing Triangle, North Coast, and seeing if they would be willing to be on call for us. The problem is they're also on a rotation. with Seaside Dispatch for a reason. So when you take them off of that rotation, you get to this is not fair. We didn't get the call situation. So I think that's something we're gonna run into with that. However, doesn't hurt for me to call all the tow companies and let them know that we have this situation where we're gonna be looking at towing vehicles, and just to keep their ear open for it, would be, my assumption is and what I've seen in previous years is they're so busy towing cars from fender benders and that kind of situation, recovery stuff, to where, I mean, they're at a premium. Just to get one here, it's gonna take some time. It's gonna take some time.
Who's the guy that had the tow truck down there, but behind your place? Your wife's place?
Cindy. Yeah, there's a few around here. We'll make some phone calls.
And the locals will help out, you know, they'll definitely be considerate and tow people out.
No, I'm not talking about
the community here.
I'm not talking about towing them out of the sand, I'm talking about towing them out of the no parking zone.
Yeah, the issue's gonna be 10th Street right there, just not the same.
So where do you post the signs about four-wheel drive on them?
Well, we're thinking of doing 3 of those signs, as a matter of fact, probably 3 or 4 of each.
Four of each, all the way
It's
up
gonna
and down.
start up and down 10.
Before you get on to 10.
Yes.
Yeah, I was considering looking at a rental Linky sign, but I don't know that our budget will take care of that, but we're gonna get some signs out earlier, so we don't get into that turnaround feature.
Yeah, because you really got a problem. How do people turn around when they get down there and see the sign?
So
I
that,
do know that there's been people involved in clearing the approach out, bringing their strips out, bringing the construction down, watering down the approach, and, you know, we can monitor, you know, look what's going on throughout the evening and probably through the weekend. You know, so the approach isn't gonna be that bad.
It's bad right now.
Oh, it's terrible.
Right now,
It's
it's-
terrible, but we have
There are
local
people
support
parked everywhere.
with their own money and equipment to clear the approach out, you know, to make sure it's gonna go smooth. You know, that's the last thing we wanna do is shut down the approach. You know, people come down here and yes, there is a problem, but we have to address it. We all have to work together, you know, and then it goes to the garbage, you know, the people, the underage drinking. You know,
well, I would encourage you to get with Chad on that,
Yeah.
you maybe tomorrow, or something, and Mark McFadden, and try to figure
Yes.
out a way that.
And we're all here. We all want to work. So, and like you said, gridlocked, you know, it's a nightmare.
I'd love to get your contact information when you have a moment.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, thank you.
So, I'm sorry, is there also?
I just had one other
Yes, ma'am.
comment on your signage. Is it worth saying, one car at a time or something, so you don't really have people go, I mean, I can't
Right.
imagine anybody would do it, but maybe they would.
I would say in a perfect world, that would be great. Who's gonna monitor that? Who's gonna have time to make sure that that's occurring?
I'm just thinking more, at least,
It would
maybe
be,
they think about it.
we even considered a one-way corridor, making it a one-way. Well, how would they get off the beach? Well, they can take Del Rey off the beach. They can only access the beach. We've gone through every scenario that we could think of, to limit movement on 10th, or at least perfect movement on 10th. It just boils down to, my biggest concern are pedestrians. The cars are gonna get stuck, they're gonna park, we're gonna deal with it, it's a piece of metal. I'm more worried about the people that are impaired, that aren't paying attention, and they're getting clobbered by cars that are trying to take off to go down 10th, to get into the sand and go as fast as they can to get through it. Either direction, really, trying to go up 10th. That's my main concern. That's what I saw near misses last year and the year before. That's the part where I see a lot, be like, that's bad.
It's happening right now,
Yes.
every day.
Yeah.
There are cars parked where they shouldn't be, and they rev up their motors and they're going 40 miles an hour.
And that was a major issue last year on the 4th, and then Chad and I were down there first thing in the morning on the 5th. And the reason that I mentioned the 2-wheel drive S-Class is because one was bottomed out in the sand. And yeah, I mean, right in front of a car that looks like a police car, and people are driving 40 to try and, you know, get through it. And it's just, it's like going over Mount Hood in the middle of the winter. You know, there are times where if you don't have traction control devices, the reason they're turning you down is for your own safety.
Well, Mr. Clean approaches through the weekend.
Yeah, and so that's why you need the appropriate vehicle in order to, you know, get through it.
Chief Ryder,
James, the problem with clearing the approach and everything like that is, what do you do with the sand? You can't mine it off the beach, you can't take it away.
No, we know that, you could put it off to the side, nobody's gonna make money taking sand off the beach.
I know
You
that,
take the
but-
sand and you take it off to the side of the approach.
But there's
You
a
can
problem
water-
with that. There's a problem with that, too. The neighbors across the way have asked the state and the county and the city to stop putting sand along the side of those dunes because it blows in and then increases the size of those dunes and they lose more of their view. So we got a few things, but you and I could probably have a good conversation, talk about some ideas, and then we'll
Yeah,
pass
I
it
mean,
along
I'm
and
here for
discuss.
solutions, you know,
Yeah.
we're all amongst trying to make it better for the Fourth of July. And we all start nitpicking garbage, DUI, traffic, you know, we have to all work together.
Okay.
So, sorry, James Blissett, PO Box 229.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
do you park a police car down there?
Tempted to park that one.
We're gonna be using that one, chief.
We will be using that one. So, yeah, we're all gonna be all hands on deck, so we're gonna have a car, we're gonna be moving around.
Okay, so I'm just wondering if you had a car parked down there and the lights were going, would that help deter?
They shoot bottle rockets at it.
Yeah.
I
Gonna go
actually
suggested
shoot
that- I suggested that last time.
Shooting them?
Well, they shot me in.
No, I
A few years
suggested
ago, I was driving.
putting a car down there and Chief said, you know, they just vandalize it.
That's what will happen. I could almost bet you.
Sons of Beaches, you know, put somebody down on the approach with a strobing yellow light down there. These kids would be happy to sit down there. If there's a problem, call 911. Hey, we've got a situation. Somebody's down here, you know, it relieves you from your duty, you know.
Well, and we're gonna post an officer there anyway. When the sun goes down, we go off the beach though, because we will get shot with fireworks. So we are getting off the beach.
Yes.
100%. Dusk, we're out. I'm not risking it. I don't want injury. We gotta get to work the next day. They got families to go to, so.
Okay.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of good people. We're willing as citizens of Gearhart to help out, whatever the problem is. We are there, you know, garbage, diligence, somebody's doing something wrong, call up.
And let me rephrase that. If there's a call, we'll go there, but just to hang out. If it's an emergency, we will absolutely respond, but just to sit there and we're a target.
Just one more comment about the, parking on Marion late at night. If they're sleeping in their car, it makes me wonder if they're impaired. You know, I'd rather they're sleeping in the car on Marion than driving.
And I echo that as well. We won't make them leave, you can do anything, but we will contact them.
Yeah.
No, we're not gonna tell them to drive, call. And you'd be surprised, last year, there were a lot of sober kids. There were a lot of sober kids that were, some of them were doing the right thing. Hey, I'm gonna be driving. And if I check your eyes, yeah, sure, go ahead. So there are some. And by sleeping in their car is an act of, you know, some smart there, right? That they know they shouldn't be driving, so they're not, so, but, you know, we still will contact them.
Great, okay, let's move on.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Chief. Next one is discussion of the public safety building, next steps.
Yes, so I'm gonna make some adjustments to this. Now, I've got some conversations to have with Peter to talk about the potential for a survey or a poll. And how that would work out within this, and whether or not we can wait until August to do the final decision whether or not to move forward with the November bond. So I need to do some timeline work for the rest of this week, and then I'll report back. So if I could table this, I will get back to the city council on an individual basis. And then report back to you, but on there is the, what Mr. Jack Zimmerman was asking about were the vote tallies for the surveys that did happen at the meeting. I'm gonna ask Chrissy to post that so that, we satisfy that curiosity, within people.
Weren't they on The big boards?
They were on the big board, we discussed it in a work session, all of that, but you know, the public as a whole may not have seen that. So,
Right, you gotta be here to see it.
Yes.
Right, I got it.
Okay.
Okay, moving on.
Gearhart Rural Fire Protection District contract, the Rural Fire Protection District contract with the city of Gearhart was up for renewal and reviewed at a May board meeting. The attached contract reflects a 5% cost increase, bringing the annual contract amount total to $266,502 for year 25-26 and $279,827 for year 26-27. This is what they pay the city of Gearhart to provide fire service out there, in addition to the fire station that they provide out there and all of the utilities and maintenance work that they do. If you break this down, the Gearhart Rural Fire Protection District, those in the Highlands, Palisades, Surf Pines, all the way out to the Astoria Golf and Country Club, pay more in taxes per thousand for fire service than the citizens in Gearhart do. It's about 67 cents per thousand, chief, is what they're paying.
For both of them.
That comes to us for the most part. And in the city of Gearhart, it's an estimate, but it's somewhere near, well, it's hard to say, but it's in the 20s to lower 30 cents per thousand of what is actually going in there. So they're paying double what they are out there for what our citizens are. And it's because of our low tax rates. But, so we have this contract, 5% for the next 2 years. We were hoping for more, we asked for a little bit more, but their budget just wouldn't take it. Plus, this 5% is an increase over the 3% that they normally gave us. So they're being very generous. They are very proactive with the city. They want to help us out, but they felt that a 5% annual rate for the next 2 were the best. So we have that resolution that's attached. I don't get to read the rest of this. Any questions?
5% a year, 5% this year,
And then 5% again next year.
So it's about it.
Yeah, and then they want us to talk to them again to see how things are going and how they can help.
When you talk to them, can you raise the issue that was brought up today and ask how they would feel about voting out of their Gearhart Rural Fire Protection District and voting into one with us so that they can help us take from the fire station?
Sure. That's important.
So we would have to vote into that as well.
I
So,
know.
so we would have to create a district with them, and that would be a separate structure.
And they would then also have the right to vote on where our fire station was, how big it was, and all of that kind of stuff. I understand all of
Yeah.
that, but somebody in the audience wanted us to pursue that, so let's do it. We're gonna cross all the Ts and dot all the Is, even if we think it's not something that is gonna happen. Ask them if you will, please.
Yeah, their taxes, they've raised their taxes, they have a levy, and those provide for that fire service out there. What we would be asking of them is if they wanted to participate in our main fire station and raise their taxes again. Ours.
Yeah, they wanna help us pay for infrastructure. I think we already know what the answer is gonna be, but it's been asked, so let's ask it.
Awesome.
I'll take a motion. You wanna wait?
I don't know. For this, do I need a consensus from the council to sign?
Yeah, you just need consensus.
Okay, how does the council feel all right with us signing this agreement, the 5% increases? Does anybody have any questions, concerns, or would like us to do something different?
No.
Then the city will sign this agreement with the Rural Fire Protection District. Thank you very much.
And you got a consensus, did you?
Well, I didn't see your head, Bob, actually. Do I have a consensus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's getting silly tired.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Well, I kept myself absolutely still. I wanted to know who was consenting.
You did.
Okay.
Do you need a motion to close or we
No, we have council concerns right now. Has anyone got a concern they want to discuss in front of everybody? I'll start with you, Preston.
I think we've talked about all of it.
Okay, Dana?
Yeah, beach cleanup is scheduled for a little earlier on July 5th. We will have just like usual, we'll have bags and buckets down at each beach entrance. Should you want to go pick up, I recommend that you get down there at around 7 o'clock, grab a bag and go for a little walk. If you bring the bag back to the entrance and put it around there, if it's still in your hand at that point, put it by where you got the bag. But usually some of the beaches or the state or somebody will come by and take it right out of your hand as you're out there collecting garbage. And we will be posting information about it. We'll put out books on the block here.
So this is from the river all the way up to 10th or even farther?
Yeah, 10th, well, you can go north of
Just start
there,
Beach Street.
but we generally, 10th is where we put the bags, but we could put some up there at Del Rey. It's not really our area. It's, I don't know.
I think there's another group that does the Delaware area.
Okay.
There was
Yeah.
last year.
Typically, the biggest problem that we have is between Parkway and just a little north of 10th.
Okay. Hold on.
I echo what Preston said, I don't have any, except it's been brought up.
Sharon,
Nothing.
I'll take the motion.
Motion to close meeting.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Let me say some things you guys really do, not fun, so.
Recording stopped.
Okay.